Welcome to another show, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about why the system is broken and when Tucker Carlson finally found out about it. Of course, before I jump in, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course share it with everyone you know. So I'm not going to provide any context. I will let him speak and Tulsi, and of course I'll give my closing remarks at the end. I think it's important for people to hear this from the perspective of Tucker, who is arguably one of the most popular people on TV, right? On mass media. He's on Fox. Tucker is 53 years old now, and he's going to tell you when it finally came crashing down on him. The epiphany that the system that he thought, right, since the age of about 22 when he started working as a journalist, the system that he thought that was in place, that was working so perfectly, he started to see the holes in it for himself. So let me allow him to tell you, and then I'll come back at the end and give you my take. Let's go.
Really what changed me was watching Trump in 2015. And I knew Trump before, because I'm in the media, so I'd known Trump, not well, but I'd known him for, 15 years before, right? A long time. And I was like, I thought he was kind of a buffoon. I still think that sometimes. But what changed my view wasn't Trump. It was the reaction to Trump among my neighbors. So Trump would say something in his florid orange way, why are we funding NATO? And that was the one that got me. I remember this. And I never questioned NATO. Because I grew up during the Cold War, and NATO was the bulwark against Soviet aggression into Western Europe. And my dad worked for the government. So we were totally for NATO. Why wouldn't you be? But that ended in August of 1991. I was on my honeymoon when the Soviet Union collapsed, but we still had NATO in 2015. What was the point? And I'd never thought about it in my life. And Trump's like, why are we funding NATO? And I thought that was a really interesting question. Okay, well, I don't know why. What's the answer? And my neighbors are like, shut up! He must be killed! It's like, okay, but maybe shut up, maybe he must be killed. But what's the answer to why are we funding NATO? Is there a good reason? Shut up!
Yeah.
They were so hysterical about obvious and basically common sense questions about the way things were working that was a tell to me. I was stunned by it, actually. I was like, reasonable people who are acting out of honorable motives should be happy or at least willing to explain themselves. Hey, Tulsi, why are you doing that? If you're like, shut up, then that tells me you're doing something wrong. If you're like, well, here's why I'm doing it. You may disagree, but here's why.
Yeah.
They couldn't do that on any topic. Immigration policy. I've never been my best friend's an immigrant. I've never been against immigrants or anything, but I was like, you should have control of your border. And Trump, in his Trumpian way, was basically arguing for that. They just couldn't deal. They couldn't deal with any questions about the way things were then operating. And when I saw that just completely exploded my view of the system. I was like, this system is a lot more fragile than I realized. It's a lot less legitimate than I realized. And then just the whole 4 years of Trump. And he'd say something that was truly insane. The intel agencies are spying on me. And you're like, okay, the intel agencies are not spying on, what, you know what I mean?
Right.
What are you was the moon landing fake too?
Right.
And then you'd find out a year later, actually the intel agencies were spying on him. And then everyone would be like, well, they had to. Wait, and you'd be like, wait, what? First of all, he was right. Second, I don't care whether it's Trump. I don't care who the president is. You can't spy on the president because he works for you. That's an attack on our system. No, it's totally fine. I would see stuff like that, and I was just like, you know what? I'm out. And we ultimately left the city, and we still have a million friends there. I have some of my closest relatives still live there. But I really became convinced that the system was not going to be enduring. This can't go on. You can't have a system. You can have a system with some lying in it. All systems do. We all lie if we're pushed. That's just who people are. I get it. I try not to be too judgmental about it. But you can't have a system based on lying. If a system is based on lying, that's a foundation of sand. It will not continue much longer. And that's how I feel about our system. And by system, I mean our political system, our financial system, and our foreign policy assumptions. They're not rooted in reality. They're not wise. No one can defend them in clear, non-hysterical language. They have to immediately go ad hominem. Your career in the Congress is like the shining example of that. Wait, I don't think it's a good idea to fund more bombing in Libya. Shut up, Russian agent.
Right.
What? Why don't you just explain
fund terrorists
to me?
or fund terrorists in Syria?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the fact that I had to introduce legislation called the Stop Arming Terrorists Act
I know.
says it all.
But where was the person to say, Congressman, you just don't understand. They're not terrorists. Here's who they are. Here's why we need to fund them. I understand why you think they're terrorists, or you're just mistaken. You read the wrong website. Here's what the facts are. No one ever bothered to do that. They just yelled at you.
Yeah.
And I know from having a lot of kids that that's a sign of deception. I know just from being a human being. If someone can't explain something and instead turns the rage on me, that's a cover because I've called that person out for doing something he can't defend. Like, duh. This is Life 101. And I just saw this all around me. You know, why is the Federal Reserve doing this? You know, why? On every level. Yeah. And, you know, really, a man can become a woman, but a white can't become a black? Like, what parts of our biology do we have control over and which don't we? Shut up! Yeah. Racist? It's like, what? The whole thing just got so absurd. Yeah. And then it kept getting more absurd. And then it got so absurd, which is where we are right now on the last day of November 2022, where it's just like we're all just waiting for it to implode because like everybody on all sides knows this is way too silly to continue. Or it becomes, in its current form, it either becomes like truly totalitarian when we're like anyone who steps out of line is going to be involuntarily hospitalized with mental illness.
Right.
Or it becomes something different, but this cannot stand.
I think, you know, you and I certainly see that. We have lived and are living through like kind of being in the world, but not of the world, like seeing the world as it actually is. I think more and more people in this country are actually seeing it. But do you think that people who are in kind of the heart of the Republican establishment, the heart of the Democratic establishment, do you think that they see that this house of cards they've built is like falling and this foundation of democracy is being eroded by their actions?
So you heard that for yourself. I mean, on every level, right? The judicial system has monstrous failings, right? That whole situation of Epstein, you know, he was in custody. Allegedly, he tried to commit suicide. You would think, okay, all right, this guy now needs to be in a padded room. He needs to have at least 2 guards on him 24/7, right? Whoever's the guards that's there, they need to be the most reliable people, right? And I say 2 because obviously somebody's going to need to go to the bathroom. The other person needs to stay there while that person goes to the bathroom. But 2 guards stationed on him at all times, keeping watch on him, right? What happens? This guy allegedly commits suicide. There's no video footage. Nobody knows how he died. Oh, but he hung himself. A witness that important, you allow him to commit suicide. The EEOC, like, you would think that with all the working Americans in this country, a place like the EEOC would have to be a top level functioning part of the government, of the system. Absolute trash. Why? Because the people that work there are not suited for these jobs. CPS, another very important part of our system, right? Child Protective Services. With all the instances of children that have been either put into a place where they had no business being put, right? Because these people were some sort of sadist, or being left in a situation where that child was already injured, you would think they would have learned their lesson. No. They have continued on the same path. What has happened to these children? They've ended up dead, unfortunately. Right? So at all levels, there's these multiple failings, and it's because the people within it are not suited for these positions. Yeah, you could be qualified for something based on your education, but it's like the video I did about Jordan Peterson, right? The importance of being ethical. If these people don't have the ethical position and the ethical consciousness to actually be within that certain spot to operate as a servant, right? To abide by the Constitution, abide by the rules of the department, governing the body, all those things, they shouldn't be there. It's same situation with the people that's, back the blue. No, you can't back the blue when there's clearly people that violate the rules of engagement. They violate all sorts of policies within the police department. You can't back them. And I see people do that all the time. They start to make excuses for people. This is the same thing that happens at every level, right? When a person proves that they're not the right person for the job, you get rid of them and put in somebody that is the right person for the job. And you tell them to come and listen. This person was doing this, all these things which are against our policies, or they weren't abiding by the Constitution, or they weren't doing this. If you come in and you do this, you're going right back out. It's pretty simple. You need to have the best people possible for the job. And like I said, it's not just based on your level of education, right? It's based on your level of consciousness as a person, right? Are you there to serve the people that pay your salary? Are you there to serve them? That's what it comes down to. And I think that is sorely lacking in society. Right? It's people that they want to be in a position to hold on to power. They want to be able to make decisions over people, but do they really give a crap about those people? No, they don't. No, they don't. And I think people need to really realize that and see when you hear things on mass media, you hear things in government. If you just look at some of the hearings, especially with Senator Hawley, when he's questioning those people from different parts of the government, and they squirm and they lie and they try to cover the truth and color the truth. These are the wrong people for the job. And, I don't know Senator Hawley's politics at all, but I know when he's questioning those people, they are all being deceptive. So it's obvious all those people are the wrong people. Right? They have no business being in there if they cannot come up there and tell the truth. And these are the kind of people that we have in government, unfortunately. These are the kind of people that we have in the judiciary, in the executive branches of government. Anyways, I don't want to make this video too long. I think I've already went on long enough, but you heard it for yourself, right? This is during the Trump era, when he started asking questions in his own way, he was shedding a light on things that people just assumed were working, completely fine. Now you see the situation, they're sending billions to Ukraine, while you have people right here in the U.S. that are struggling. How can that be? How can you put another country before the people in your own country that are from there? How can you leave your borders open, but you can't take care of the homeless that are right here? Questions worth asking. And as always, there's more to come. So subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course share it with everyone you know. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.